Welcome to the second episode of the Path Talk Show of Season 2. And today I have an amazing guest who is an elite state champion, a national level boxer, and also a former gymnast. Welcome, Sonya.
Hello, thanks for having me. Finally here.
Yeah, I know. And how's everything going?
Oh, gosh, I don't even know where to start. Fighting, juggling motherhood, working. It's chaotic. Like it's very busy, but I just look to find the positives in it. And things are good. We're kicking off a fight season, aiming to fight on the 21st of Feb.
Oh, beautiful.
So looking forward to that.
So how do you find it being able to juggle like having kids and preparing for a fight? Like I know there'll be a lot happening behind the scenes when it comes to that type of stuff.
I don't know where to start. I think there's a lot of like push and pull. Like I've got to be more so than ever, like everywhere. And it's that being able to spread myself evenly through work and give myself to my kids. And sometimes it's like, it is a lot. I think priorities are important. Know your priorities, adapt, it's being organized. It is really hard, but yeah, like it's just one of those things I think becoming a mum as well, it strengthens you and it gives you that resilience. And people talk about it like before you have kids, being a mum, you're strong, you're tough, but it's sort of like till you get there, you don't really know how intense it really is. It's very mentally draining more than anything.
Yeah, I can imagine that. And as we're talking right now, there's actually a bug or a bird making noise. I'm not too sure, but I'm trying to focus on the conversation, but it's just like noise happening in the background, just in case you hear it.
The bug.
It's on the top.
Oh,
a bird made a nest. Wow.
We'll try block it out. Nothing mums can't do.
Exactly.
Usually it's the kids at home pulling at my ankles and wanting something, and I'm like, okay, let me just. So it's okay. We could adapt.
Yeah, for sure. And you got married and have kids during the lockdown period as well.
I did. Yeah, it was sort of like I don't know. I guess it was a smart move. So there was nothing to do. We thought, let's have a kid. The fights were off. I got pregnant in 2020. It was all during COVID and the lockdowns, and then he was planned, and then unplanned I had my daughter. She was actually a surprise, but that also was like we're still in lockdowns because that was 22. They were like 13 months apart.
Wow.
Oh, yes.
Insane times that was.
I feel like if you lose years of life from stress, maybe I'm going to lose some years, but
I get that.
But they're totally worth it. Like they're good. Yeah.
No, good. And you got into boxing back in around 2018 or 2019?
So I started boxing in 2018. I had my first fight quite fast. So a lot of fighters do train a bit longer. It was about 9 or 10 months for me, but I was a elite level artistic gymnast and powerlifter competitive before that. So I've basically done competitive sports since I was about 3. Like that's all I've known. Yeah.
Because when I met you originally, you were doing powerlifting.
Yes.
And then you're looking for that transition if you were going to do wrestling, boxing, or jiu-jitsu. So you were dabbling into a few different things. And then I saw you make that decision to go into boxing.
Yeah. I guess I was I do have ADHD, but I was also ADHD in my training where I was powerlifting, doing a bit of freestyle wrestling with you and your sister, I remember at the time at UFC gym, and doing a bit of boxing. So I really wanted to do, at the time, actually MMA or boxing or some sort of like a combat sport. I didn't know what. So I tried everything. I even did BJJ. And it was really because I found like people who lift heavy are going to probably like not like this, but don't get triggered. But like I found powerlifting a bit boring for me. So like I loved that I was strong. I was making gains fast. But I did about 2 competitions and it was a bit like, okay, like deadlift, bench, squat, like, okay, like what now? Like it just sort of it was a bit boring. And when I transitioned to giving combat sports a go and trying, it was like, oh, like there's so much like, okay, oh, I can't just use my strength here. I actually need to use my brain. I actually need to use technique. Like, your sister threw me and I'm like, oh, okay, hold on. It's not about my strength. Like, she's doing this purely off like a technique. Like,
pretty
like
much.
there was so much involved. And that's what I love, like the constant stimulus and learning. And that's what you get from boxing. That's what you get from fighting. Like, it doesn't matter how fit you are, how strong you are. You're constantly evolving and growing and learning,
No, I get that. It is a intellectual sport, and I kind of like to explain it like this, where it is a chess game, but sometimes you only have a split of a second to think when you do decisions. So yeah, it's amazing how much technique, strategy, how fast you have to be. In wrestling, you have to be as athletic as a gymnast.
Speed, yeah. There's
so much elements that are involved in the sports of combat.
Yes.
And yeah, so what made you transition into wanting to get into fighting?
I guess like I said, I was dabbling in everything, and I realized, I sort of realized, but also my first boxing coach, Roy Sharkey, God bless him. He one day just said to me, and I had DOMs in my legs from lifting heavy. And I had like a light spar or something, and I didn't do very well. And he just made a comment like, what's it going to be? I know you're lifting weights, and he's also old school. So he was very much like, you can't lift 5 days a week and fight. And I sort of had a moment of like, okay, maybe I do need to make a decision here. So I started sparring. I had done Muay Thai sparring. I'd done a bit of wrestling, and I really enjoyed the boxing the most. And so I just made that decision, like, I'm going to have a boxing fight. And I literally told myself, like, I'm going to work hard, have this boxing fight, see how it feels, and then decide if I want to be a fighter. And the rest was history. Like, I had my first fight, and it was the most thrilling thing I'd ever felt. Loved it. And I just wanted to get better and better and better and make a name for myself. And yeah, just absolutely loved it.
That's amazing, especially you knowing what it's like to be a competitor as well, going into a fight, how nervous you are, but yet you're excited and you're having so much adrenaline walking in, especially for your first fight. Like, you would have been so excited just getting into the ring and just
dump
fighting.
Was real too. I was so like naive, where I'm like, I'm super fit, I'm not gonna gas, like, and then get in the ring in one round. My first fight, gassed. Like, it is just the adrenaline dump, which every fighter would know, even wrestling. Like,
absolutely,
it's so different. Like, it's a different kind of fitness, and I think, like we were saying before, mental. There's a lot involved in fighting, so. To people who don't know much about the fighting, they think, it's just fitness and strength, power, but there's so much. It's that ring IQ, it's your breathing, which has been a game changer to my sparring and my last couple of fights as well. Like, really focusing on my breath work, something that I feel is still a bit taboo. Like, if you talk to people about breath work, it sounds a bit like you're a yogi,
I get you,
hippie, or like, but honestly, just like being more in tune with my breathing, even in my warm-up. So where before my warm-up was purely physical, now I actually will sit there and allow 5 or 10 minutes to visualize and really focus on my breath. And doing this even in the corner in between rounds has been a game changer. Like, really. Yeah.
That's amazing. And it brings me back to when I was younger as well, where you were saying how important breathing is. And I used to have a lot of trouble with my mindset going into competitions, because I used to get so nervous to the point where I wanted to throw up. And sometimes I would throw up as well. But yeah, I ended up seeing this sports psychologist who worked with the Olympic swim team.
Oh, wow.
And he taught me a lot about breathing and also meditation.
So
yeah. Being able to switch off your muscles to the point where it's completely relaxed and where you're just focusing and tuning into your breath.
Yeah.
And then from there, he was teaching important elements into what type of music you should be listening to, like the morning of, on the way to the event, and then onto the lead
I'll
up
add something funny after this.
Like actually fighting.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's amazing if once you get that like actual ritual happening, how it can enhance your performance.
Yeah. I'll just add to the music thing. Yes. So this is really interesting. Like, you look at people's walkouts in general, or people sort of relate fight music or like what you'd imagine that you'd listen to with like rock or angry, or you got to like psych yourself. Whereas I've actually really changed. So I've shifted where I've now realized I'm a better fighter when I'm calm and when I'm happy. So when I go in, which I used to in my, first few fights, I used to think like I need to rev up, I need to be angry, I need to actually get but it didn't actually work. I actually need to be calm, and I need to have no emotion to a certain degree and be in a relaxed state. And look, I love music. It's a little bit strange to some, but I love classical. I actually could listen on fight day to Mozart, Beethoven. This is like a little fun fact. Not many people know about me. I love my old music, 60s, 70s, 80s, like most people don't know. So yeah, it's just one of those things, but it makes a big difference. Like I just want to stay calm,
It is important, and that's what the sports psychologist said. Listen to music with beautiful melody where it has more instrumental like type of elements to it. So it just can keep you calm through the entire process. And I like to tell my students as well, where if you come into aggressive, you can actually feel what your opponents are about to do.
Yeah.
But there's nothing more scary than someone who's calm.
Because they're in control.
They're in the control.
Yeah, 100%.
You can't predict what they're going to do because they're so loose, and they can mislead you to any direction they want you to go in order to set up their attack.
Well, when you think about like emotions and let's say anger or aggression, you can be aggressive with your style in fighting in a calm way where you're not emotional, but you're being an aggressive fighter, like stylistically. But what emotions like anger or tensing up do when you're not relaxed, it tenses you up. You go in flight or fight. And as bizarre as it sounds, because it is like fighting, you don't want to be in flight or fight. So you want to be in control. When don't quote me, I could be wrong. Is it the amygdala hijack, or there's something like that, like something that goes off when
the power cell.
It's just something in your brain that goes off in flight or fight. But when that happens, your heart rate increases, your breathing then changes. So you're not really in control, So
I get you.
Yeah. And that is not going to be you're not going to have the best outcome of the fight if you're not in control, because like we said earlier, it's IQ, it's a strategy, it's brains. People think in boxing fitness is important, and don't get me wrong, it's a huge factor, but you see the transition from novices to elites. I just saw it even at nationals, maybe your first 5 fights or 10, aggression and strength and really being fit will get you wins.
Yes.
But you're going to get to that elite stage to a certain point where you can be super fit. If you don't have the skills, composure, and that ring IQ, well, you're not going to win fights because fitness is not enough.
No, I agree a lot with that. And I feel especially when you get into that level 2, when you're competing against the elites, and you said being in control, where I also see as well, you always have to be prepared for where some things will come in with outside of your control as well.
Oh, all the time.
And
it feels like it. And it always happens in fight camp. It's bizarre. It's sometimes you just think, this just happened. Every fight camp I've had, there's been struggles.
Yeah, absolutely.
And ironically, coincidentally, I don't know if it's Murphy's Law, it happens for even nationals. I had so much thrown at me during that time, to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm about to have the opportunity to compete in the best tournament of my life so far with boxing, and I nearly wanted to throw the towel in and go I don't think I can do this. It was so hard, so much, and the timing of it all. And I don't know. I do believe whether you believe in God or something else out there, I do believe that you do get these challenges as a test, or when sometimes you don't know in the moment, but I do believe everything happens for a reason. And
absolutely,
people do struggle with that concept because, they say, oh, but then why do people get sick? Why does this happen? But I really still do, sometimes we don't know in that moment, but for our actual journey, the whole grand scheme of things, because we can't see that far, but there is a plan, and it really is all happening for a reason. And I do believe these adversities for every fight is making me stronger.
It does. And it's amazing that you said that about God and how he does give trials and tribulations as well.
Yeah.
And I can relate a lot to that, where when I was trying out for my first Olympic Games and pretty much won every single competition to the point after winning Oceanias. And during that period, I ended up breaking up with my first girlfriend at the time. And obviously, first love, like, it's devastating. It's hard.
Yeah.
But it was like a long distance relationship. Back then, I was living in Canada.
Yeah.
So I remember going to Canada, not realizing it's the off season. So there wasn't much training going on.
Yeah.
So I didn't have that much of an opportunity to train. And then I competed in Morocco and I didn't end up getting the outcome I wanted.
Yeah.
And I just remember, similar to possibly what you possibly experienced, where I was in complete devastation and I put the blame on God for it. And like, it's what you said, like, you don't know the bigger picture. You don't know what God's plan is for you.
And when things go wrong in life, even when we haven't had a close relationship to him, we've strayed away. It doesn't matter what happens, we tend to doubt and we get negative. We get in this pessimistic, negative mindset and we blame God. Like, people don't realize this. We do. If there's a God, why is this? We connect it to all the bad things in our life. I just think, to a degree, we need to pull back and also shift to what we are doing, whether it be our actions or thoughts. You know, we are also a big part of what happens, the bad things that can happen. Not all the time. Like, I mean, things do just happen and it's sometimes bad luck, but we're responsible for a lot. But I feel a lot of people don't have that awareness to bring it back, whether they're athletes or just being a human in general, to go, okay, I need to improve this aspect of my life. I need to get better here and identify the mistakes. People don't ever like to call themselves out. They want to blame others, whether it's God, the coach, someone else. They want to blame someone.
Yeah, it's true. And a lot of people don't have that self-awareness. And what we have control of is the decisions we make at the end of the day.
Yes.
And the decisions we made led to the outcome that we actually achieved. And obviously we're in a spiritual warfare as well, where a lot of people don't know where we're in the world of, like, Satan's realm.
I
like
agree.
we were talking about earlier.
Temptation is, I feel like if there was ever a time where it was so shoved down our throats, in our faces, like it's now, like it's with social media, the internet, 24/7 access, TikTok, everything going on, as bizarre as it might sound, like there is light and there's dark in the world right now. And at the moment, the earth is basically Satan and dark. And you know, it's important to see the light, but a lot of people don't even know what's really going on and how everything we're looking at and seeing is altering our mindset and our view on the world. And yeah, like a lot. I don't know what the term is, like, I don't want to say woke, but people are very asleep to this. Like, they actually can't even see it happening. Like how it's breaking families. It's, you know, weakening men. It's, you know, there's just a lot going on that's being normalized that I also don't think should be normalized. But if you say this, you know, Yeah,
and I've watched a few documentaries about this as well, where when it comes to artificial intelligence and other intelligence behind the scenes working on social media, and there's this thing called dark posting where it works on manipulating people's minds.
Which is so scary.
Yeah, it is scary.
It's not normal. But if you say this to someone where you go, AI is evil, they laugh at you like you've said something. It's like, oh, I can't, like, but it's like, but look what it's doing. And it's literally become a tool. Like even Chat GPT, like I know people that use it all the time. And don't get me wrong, like it can be a good tool. But I saw actually a video recently that spoke about Chat GPT. So Chat GPT can lie. I didn't know that until I saw this video. It can lie depending on the agenda, but it actually can tell you lies. So it's not always accurate information. And there was something else really mind-blowing about it. I can't quite...
I don't know if it was ChatGPT, but there was an incident where someone actually committed suicide.
I think, are you talking about the young boy that got conned into believing... I read this article that it was a lover, but it wasn't a lover. Yeah, and that's crazy. So,
it is.
And as a mother, like obviously I'm a mother, like I I'm so frightened that my kids are growing up in this world because schools are bringing it into school. Like, they're bringing technology into schools. It's becoming a thing. And it's like, I just, yeah, it's so scary because it's not normal, but it has become society's normal. And and if you speak up about these things, sorry, that thing just came back and I'm just laughing.
Yeah, it's all good. The bird's back.
The bird, whatever it is. Yeah. So, but it's become where if you speak up about it, you're the problem. You're judgmental. You're a hater. You're, and yeah, a lot of people can't see it, which is sad.
I get it. And I can see myself falling into this trap quite a bit of time, especially with social media, where now it's become so addictive where you're just curious on what people are doing in their stories and on their posts. And when you have that spare time to yourself, you just feel those urges wanting to kick in and you just want to go back to your phone.
Yeah.
And there was a great picture I saw the other day of this thing absorbing the energy off the face.
Yes.
And I feel it's a lot like that because it drains all your energy through your dopamine levels.
I read something really interesting the other day, and it was basically talking about how we're constantly on our phones. We're addicted to our phones. They're on us 24. They're literally us. They're part of us now. Like, they're just part of us. And we're wanting to always look at it. And it said this is a problem with society, not just in raising children, but even in ourselves, because we no longer just be. Now, that sounds strange, like just be. But I mean, once upon a time, we actually got bored. We're never bored anymore because even if you're not at the gym, even if you're not doing something, you can just go on an app, look at your phone.
That's true.
So we're distracted. And this is a real big problem too. We're constantly distracted. We are never able to sit with our feelings. And it all actually connects. So this plays a huge role in relationships as well. Like, relationships, I believe there's so much pressure now with relationships. There's so much temptation. Like, I mean, whether you're a guy or a girl, like, you go on your phone, you basically can see nearly pornography. You can basically see nudity. Like, so what's that doing to men or women? Like, men are going to go, and subconsciously they will compare. And even if they don't mean to, they will. And it's, it just causes so many issues. But we are just constantly distracted. And no one wants to just exist where, and kids as well, like raising children. We you see parents that just give them like an iPad or technology because they're, being annoying or being children. And again, like, why don't we just let kids be bored? Because when you have boredom, you have imagination, you have creativity. Once upon a time when the kids got bored like that, they'd go, okay, well, there's nothing to do. I'm going to use my imagination and pretend there's fairies or go outside and, you know what I mean, build something. They don't have that anymore. And that, in my opinion, is a big problem.
Yeah, I agree. And it comes to like giving your kids iPad because you want to be doing the things you want to be doing. And I admire my neighbors for what they have done. So what they did to raise their child, they got rid of the TV and they're not allowed to touch their mobile phones until like they're in high school. So they have to be put in that position where they're educating themselves or being bored so they can tap into their creativity, where they can enjoy being a child, enjoy riding their bikes, playing with a ball in the backyard. And growing up with that, like we did, we got to experience a lot of that, where we got to tap into that imagination and be able to grow like that as children.
90s, early 2000s. I think you'd be similar, that child. I think we were like the last. I think millennials, or I'm 96, but I feel like we were the last of it. And depending on how you're raised, like, I was just always outdoors. There was no internet. Well, there was internet, but it was like, the way we had it was you have to disconnect.
Dial-up internet.
Is that what it is? I don't know the official. Yeah, you disconnect the home phone to be able to use the internet. And then even the internet, like, I think all I had was MSN, and it was my friends, and we just nudge, like, just, like that. That's all. But it was just people I knew, and it was very supervised. So my mum would give us about 40 minutes internet time. In that time, I was, oh my goodness, you know what I was even doing? Like, I just can't see a 10-year-old doing this these days because of what social media's done and the 20.
That's true.
Like, I literally, what I did as a 10 or 11 or 12-year-old was go on Microsoft Word. You remember those graphics? Like, and you'd make fonts and graphics. Like, that was our fun on the computer. like, or LimeWire. It's like
I remember LimeWire.
Yeah,
And there was
yeah.
another one. It was called Tarot or something like that. It was like a
Yeah.
pirate
Yeah.
copy. Like you can
Yep.
copy music, you can copy
Yep.
movies, etc.
I mean, that's all we really did. And even that was boring because, like, there was
Yeah.
so much more fun things to do outside, whereas they don't have that now. It's sort of, and I do think, like, yes, it's the parents' responsibility to a degree, but it's also, like, as a society, everyone is responsible. Teachers, the education system, the government, because realistically, they say they can't control it, but I find that very hard to believe because
I get that.
you know, there's so much on the internet or that we see that, like, it really shouldn't be there, but it's there. And I find it really hard to believe that it's like they can't do anything about that, you know?
There's a famous quote that I love, especially when it comes to raising children.
Yep.
It takes a village to raise a child. So it's exactly what you said. It's not only the parents' responsibility, but the teachers, their environment they grow up in.
Yes.
In order for the child to grow.
Yeah, yeah.
So
there is a lot of pressure on the modern mother, I find, like, because, you know, it doesn't matter what you do, there's going to be a negative or a naysayer. So it's, oh, your kids go to daycare. Oh, they should be at home. But then it's, oh, you're at home. You're a stay-at-home mum. Oh, that's not normal. Like, you should work full-time. Oh, you work full-time. You're not for the kids. Like, it doesn't matter what you do. They're always going to say something, but it's also that pressure. Like, even if I wanted to work full-time, well, then the system then raises my kids, but that costs money. Like, and if I choose to stay home full time, then it's not affordable because of how society is set up. So it's kind of like everything they want the modern mother to be needs a village, needs support, but we don't have it. You get a few weeks of paid leave, and there isn't support, like, because it's what's motherhood? Motherhood is not, parental leave is what, 6 weeks, 12 weeks. Like, motherhood is forever. And that time frame 0 to 5, before they even go to kindy, is shaping how they view the world and their self-esteem. It's actually such an important part of their becoming an adult or a kid. And mothers can't be like the best mothers or the best version of themselves because there isn't support, there isn't help. And as a society, where I just think we don't acknowledge and respect that family sacredness, that mother, father, it's just sort of not a big deal anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting when you say that. Like, I'm just wondering your perspective of this is like back in the olden times when the husband or the man used to make all the money for the family. Do you resonate for that to be more in the modern stage of society, or do you reckon like where we are heading now, where obviously we're still advancing in society, but do you think for a woman that wants to raise kids and be a mother and enjoy being a mother would rather be in those times than in current times?
I think it really depends. Everyone's different. See, my opinion on this would be very triggering, even to some men, if I say this. Sorry. And like, so I feel like, let's talk modern father or man. This is general, not all of them, not all men, but, you know, so we're evolving where, like, yes, women can go to work, women are working, they're now also wanting to be more independent and all that, and that's sort of evolved and we're doing that. But there is still that pressure of we still haven't evolved from, like, okay, let's say the man, the father provides fully, and then the woman is, you know, also very busy working, training, whatever it is. But a lot of men still expect the woman to do all the domestic, all the household, all the child raising. So not all, but most modern men that I know and I've heard of anyway, well, like, they want to be the breadwinner. They want to provide. They want to be this masculine person. But like I was saying before about some men and how society's set up now to weaken men, I believe it's part of an agenda.
I agree.
They're doing the opposite. So the modern man thinks it's masculine and tough to degrade women, be a bit misogynistic, and but really masculinity, it's like we've lost the definition of it. Like, the strong man keeps that emotional security in a woman, protects. It's not just this I make the money. It's like, do you provide? Provide is not just money. It's how nurturing are you? Because the way I look at it in a household, the father, he's responsible for that provide, nurture. That couple is good. Okay, now mother is in a good state of mind. She can be a good mother. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's this sort of dynamic, this sort of thing that's not acknowledged, appreciated, and people just sort of miss it. And it's playing a huge role in society. Like,
it is a bigger role than a lot of men actually think to become more masculine. And I think we're living in today society where men or people in general are becoming a lot softer.
I agree.
And it's what you said before, where we're blaming one another for different things, where we don't take ownership for the things we possibly done, but we put the blame on someone else. And obviously we don't prioritize health like we used to as well. And obviously we're manipulated with other things on social media and other things outside of that as well.
Exactly.
Hence why we're becoming more of a softer society.
We are becoming softer, and I think a part of this that doesn't help is, again, coming back to just in general, like the way society is, the government, whatever it is, you can't have an opinion anymore. So we think we're free. I don't think we're free. Like, you can't really have an opinion without, I don't know if the word snowflake, people get very, very like, oh, you can't say that. So you can't say this without being labeled sexist. You can't say this without being labeled racist. Like, you really are not free, and you're not allowed to have an opinion. Like, there's a way to have an intelligent opinion without being cruel and bullying someone, and I'm all for that. But people don't like that. Like, so, even me having my opinion on, I wish society was set up in a way where I could afford to stay home and watch my kids full time and train. But I can't afford that. I need to go and make some money because we're not supported and set up in a way where that can work. Life is so expensive. And there will be a woman who's automatically saying, oh, that's so sexist. You want to stay home and raise the kids. You don't want a career. Women and feminists have fought so hard for you to go to work. And it's like, but I never asked for that. Like, I'm not, you know what I mean? Like,
I get you.
It's the general, but it's like, okay, but hold on a second. You're saying that all women want to do that, but I wouldn't have wanted to do that. I would have been happy to stay home, have a homestead, raise my children, but we can't afford that. Yeah.
No, it's interesting, and like, obviously I'd love to dive deeper in this in the future, but I would also love to go into the politics of boxing as well.
Yes.
When it comes to like the coaches and what happens behind the background with the association. And you were speaking about how there's a lot of corruption behind the scenes.
Look, there is a lot of corruption and policies. I think it's the same with like every sport. I mean, it's hard when sometimes it doesn't matter how good of a fighter or athlete you are. It's who you know. It's the gym you're from. It is sort of like that. And there is still, just outside of the actual politics of the actual boxing, there is a lot of toxicity in this sport still that I just feel people don't talk about enough, or they don't have the courage to talk about it. They feel they're going to hurt people by saying it. But, whether it be weight cuts, sometimes it's how we're spoken to in the sport too. So I get that fighting, like boxing, is a tough sport, but there's a way that we can make tough fighters without having to put them down. And I still see, and I'm sure as a wrestler you've seen it, that tough love, but it's like, you're this, you're weak, like almost bullying and harassing and belittling, thinking like that's going to bring the best out of the fighter. But it doesn't always work that way. But there is a lot of that in a lot of gyms.
And obviously, do you find where a lot of these coaches need to be weeded out, or do you believe they need to be more educated on how to become a better coach in a modern society?
I think, it sounds harsh to say weed them out, but I think it's that education. But the problem is, how do you educate someone who doesn't think they're wrong and is unwilling to change?
Yeah.
A lot of these people are also, I'm right, you're wrong. They can't see what they're doing is wrong. You are the problem automatically. They can't even see it. So it's a hard one. we do need a lot more education. I mean, as a female boxer, I wish there was more education on nutrition. Like, even if a dietitian, like I work with a dietitian, he's amazing, but I wish he could go out and literally do a seminar at every single boxing gym, because the amount of toxicity I see, and people have eating disorders or unhealthy views of food, and they don't like even know it's not normal.
Yeah.
But it isn't. It's not good at all. And there are coaches even out there that are telling their fighters how to cut weight. It's like, you're not qualified. And the way they're making them cut is like dangerous, like insane water cuts, like that don't make sense. Like,
I get that.
Yeah.
And a lot of coaches tend to give advice of what they did when they were a fighter.
Yeah.
Or if they weren't a fighter, because there's some coaches out there that weren't professional fighters as well, will be saying what other fighters did. And like you said, they're not educated. And I find where we need to be educated in order to be able to get the best performance out of our athletes when it comes to being able to eat correctly, obviously staying hydrated and being able to bring down weight without affecting the performance of the athlete.
Which
otherwise
a lot of them don't realize, like it plays a huge role. So nationals, I mean, I had the one fight, but people had 4 fights. So it's a 4-day tournament, which means you're making weight each day you fight, which is pretty full on. And that just means that if you're doing a very draining, toxic weight cut, it's just, there's no way you're going to fight 4 days in a row and be at your best self and perform when you're cutting a huge amount of weight and in an unhealthy way. So if it's done under guidance of, say, a dietitian, like they know the percentage of weight you can cut for your weight and walk around and all that sort of stuff. Like they know the science, and that's what we need more education on. So it's either the coach should go, hey, go see a dietitian, or refer you to someone. It should be like a referral, or don't give bad information, don't give bad advice, because it's so dangerous. Like, and people don't realize, like, really bad weight cuts, it's not just performance. Like, you're more likely to actually get a concussion from a bad weight cut. Not
only concussion, but also people have died from dehydration as well.
Yeah, there's so much involved in it. There's a lot.
Like, I've seen like some crazy weight cuts in the past where people wearing sweatsuits and they're in a sauna riding a bike or pumping with like their training partner, and obviously they're putting more harm to themselves. Like, lucky I never put myself in that boat where I was like running in the sauna, just because I knew how to bring my weight down with having proper nutrition as well as staying hydrated, and still eating 2 to 3 meals a day. And still get that weight down.
That's me. Like, so before I started working with my dietitian, and we've got a very good relationship, I've been working with him since I basically decided I want to fight again after kids. Well, I always knew I was going to fight, but when I went, okay, time to get serious, like I tried to get the weight off myself. Some came off, but then I'm like, okay, this last 10 kilos, because it was literally like 20 kilos I put on after having like 2 kids. It wasn't budging. And I tried the tuna and rice. I did the chicken, the boiled, boring chicken and rice, like the most plain, and it wasn't working. And I was then like, okay, maybe I should go down to 1,000 calories, which is bad. Like, that's not good. But I was like cutting. Then I started working with him, and I nearly went, oh my goodness, like that's a lot of calories and food. You want me to lose weight on that? And he's like, yep. So we wanted to work out my maintenance first before we cut. And it was just like, wow. So we figured out my maintenance calories and then basically started the cut, mini little cuts. And I was eating like 2,000 plus calories compared to before what I was doing. Like, I was eating more. The volume of food and frequency of food was like, I was in my head actually, like, because I was so used to like not eating this much, thinking when you're cutting, you think, oh, less is better. And here I am like eating like, oh, how am I going to, and I was losing weight. And then it was like, see, there's a science to it. It's, the way they do it, like they just know what they're doing. And a lot of people don't realize, like, I literally had pikelets, mango macadamia waist bar, that really nice ice cream, jam and toast on white bread, and lots of fruit, like fight week, like sugar and fruit and carbs. they're not the enemy.
They're not.
No.
And we consider them to be the enemy,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to more the old school type of coaches.
Yeah.
Where I've heard like a funny story in the past where this guy was having only like salads and his coach told him to have Wheat Bix with water.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And he was doing all the wrong things. And being a personal trainer, being around educated nutritionists as well, they were putting him into similar diets as you, where they're eating over 2,000 calories and they were still burning the weight and still achieving their goals.
Yeah.
And that comes down to getting proper education.
Well, it is. And it even sort of the same thing is like, say, S&C, like, which is so big now. You see so many fighters now have an S&C coach. Like,
Yes.
I was one of those people years ago that went, oh my gosh, you don't need that. You can get a program off the internet. You can, and there is that old school, like we were saying earlier, the dinosaur coaches or whatever that don't believe in it. Just go road run. You can do it. We used to do that back in the day. You just run 10 kilometers or whatever.
Yeah.
But the science is now proving you don't actually need to run. You don't even need to do 10Ks. You can get fitter in a shorter amount of time. We're now learning, and the science is showing it's quality over quantity. Where once people thought, oh, we go in the gym and kill ourselves for like 3 hours. Well, no, you can get a better outcome in like 30 minutes. And I kid you not, as a mother and someone busy, that is honestly one thing that even when I do a session, it's quality over the quantity. I am sometimes in the gym an hour max. An hour, sometimes less. I don't always have time to be in the gym that long, but I get it done. And there's ways to do it, whether it's interval sort of sprint on the bag, the assault bike. I got really fit to fight even without running. When I tell people that, they're like, what? You're a boxer and you don't run? I'm like, yeah, I had a knee injury that was so weird where I could do sprints. I could do...
So you're doing sprints, bikes, and
assault bike.
Some people do swimming.
I didn't swim. I did assault bike, sprints, bag sprints, like interval, all very like 100% efforts, short rest time. Sometimes the rest was a minute, but mostly 30 seconds, 40 seconds. And that's how I got ring fit. Like I never didn't run. I did not run. And I was getting fitter, sparring as well.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know, one of the original people who introduced strength conditioning to sports was a guy named Tim Grover. So he wrote a book called Relentless. So he was Kobe O'Brien's, I'm pretty sure, but I'm certain that he was Michael Jordan's like strength conditioning coach. So his first client in terms of like athletes was him.
Oh, wow.
And from
Is
there...
he basketball, Cope, or basketball? I thought so, yeah.
Yeah, so he started training them in strength conditioning. And you just saw their performance just excel just because it was more about quality over
and
quantity.
Efficiency. That efficiency as
and having
well.
systems in place in order for you to follow, which makes your job as an athlete easy.
Yes.
And I found that was pretty easy once, like obviously we both trained at Ethos Performance.
Yep.
And being educated by a lot of the coaches who are exercise physiologists as well.
That's my S&C coach, Tyrell.
Tyrell,
so,
yes.
yeah, he does online programming for me now. So I just couldn't get to – I love Ethos. Like I was going there, but I wasn't able to actually physically be there, especially if their times. It just didn't work out. So it just suited me more to get online, and I just started working with Tyrell. So, yeah, but he's been amazing and the communication's good. And, yeah, it's just that efficiency. Like it's amazing how – there are so many people that don't have this info and this education, or they're not, you know, reaching out for it when you don't need, like sometimes I see people, the things people do in boxing gyms and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing that? You don't need to do that. Like, and it's just easier. You've got someone who programs for you, you know, exactly, you know, they know what you need to work on, and yeah, like you're more likely to get a better outcome, better results, better performance. It's more straightforward. And you stress less as an athlete as well, especially when you can pass on things like strength conditioning or having a dietitian behind your nutritionist where they can help pave the way for you. For all you need to focus on is just pretty much training. Yes, it takes the guesswork out. It does. Someone else is sort of accountable to a degree, and it just takes that whole stress out because it's stressful enough just to do the training, to do life. So someone else does your diet, does your S&C. It just makes it so much easier. You literally just have to follow it. You know, it's way easier. Definitely. And
obviously you have a fight on the 21st
if I get matched.
if you get matched.
Yeah, so how amateur, I never say it properly, amateur.
Yeah.
How it works is you nominate for a fight. So the first fight of the year is the 21st of Feb and you get matched. And if you get matched, you fight. And there's so many through the year. Like there's on the boxing website, you can look it up on their events page. So yeah, hopefully I get matched. I mean, this year that went by like was a little bit like it was a good year, but I wanted to have a lot more fights, but I just wasn't getting matched. Or, you know, one or two I pulled out sick, or then I had a couple where they pulled out. So it's actually very hard. So I guess this is where also the guys are luckier in fighting in boxing. Like the matches are a lot easier. Most of the time.
Yeah, I get you.
The pool of fighters for female boxing, some of us are fighting like rematching multiple times because there just isn't as many girls still doing it. So you don't get matched as easily. I don't think New South Wales is also one of the biggest ones for boxing. I think Canberra, Queensland much bigger because they also fight younger. Yeah,
I get
so
you.
here legally, I don't think you can have your first fight. Oh, don't quote me, but I think it's 14 or 16, 11 years old, ACT, Queensland, like you can start. And that few years makes a big difference to experience and all sorts of things. Like,
yeah, I can imagine that. And especially women in combat sports in general is still so young.
Yeah, like it's going amazing. Like I look at some of the girls in the pro scene and what they've done. Love Katie Taylor, love Amanda Serrano. Like there are some really, really, good fighters out there. Again, sort of going back to social media. I don't like the way it's going with marketing women. A part of me thinks...
In what way?
Well, I just think something that we're seeing a lot in the sport is sexualizing the women where...
Is it like when they're kissing each other?
No, it's the lingerie weigh-ins. It's sort of the using their looks and their body and you know
what's the name of the Australian girl?
Ebony.
Yeah, I've seen her once at Ethos.
Ebony Bridges. Yeah, she's now I think in the UK. I she had a fight. I don't think she won that fight. I don't know what she's even doing now. Like I don't talk to her. She's just but I wasn't really for that. Like I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I wouldn't ever shame a woman for doing that, but it's interesting when they say I'm empowering women by doing this because I sort of have that, you're not empowering women because you're objectifying women, you're sexualizing women, you're actually contradicting it because we're working so hard here to be like, hey, we're on the same level as the men. You know, we're just as good, we're just as skilled. So then when you come along and do it in that way, it's sort of taking that away where it's like, okay, well, no, we're not as good as the men because we need to take our clothes off to be, you know what I'm trying to say?
I get it.
Does that make sense?
No,
like,
I get it.
To get the attention, you're actually, and then to the eyes of some men, that's sort of like comical. It's sort of like you're now not a fighter, like you're a fighter, but you're also like you know what I mean? Like this, I just think it sort of does the opposite. And as a mother raising a daughter, I want my daughter, if she did become a fighter, to know that this is about your skills. And I don't want her to feel like she's got more chance of getting a contract or getting on a good promotion or getting fans if she wears a G-string at her weigh-in. Like, why would I want... Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that is not how it should be, but it is that way. But I just don't think that it should be. To me, it's actually sad.
Yeah. I get that. And it's funny that you say that. Like, women are being more sexualized as like individuals, especially in combat sports. And it's quite sad to see. But how different is the styles compared to men and women? Because like, let's say in wrestling, because I'm more of an expert in wrestling, more so than any other combat sport, where wrestling, obviously women wrestlers are absolutely amazing and they're doing phenomenal things where there's this one female Japanese wrestler who won the Grand Slam and she's the only wrestler to ever do it. But yet the styles of how they wrestle is so different to the men.
It's like that in the boxing as well, to a degree. At the highest level, if we're talking pro, I find the women's are a lot higher pace. But this is also because it's 2-minute rounds. So you've got, I think, Amanda Serrano and certain female pros wanting like, hey, we can do the same as men. Give us 3 minutes. I don't know the exact politics as to why they don't just do that. And it's interesting because it's actually an argument in boxing. Some women say, no, we should do twos. We stick to twos, you know, and it does actually make for a more entertaining fight, if you ask me, because people underestimate the difference in a 2 and 3 minute round. So when you're doing a 2, it is a sprint. It's just go, 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 go. It's work rate. The 3 allows for more strategy. It allows for more, okay, I've got 10 or 12 rounds, 3 minutes. I need to have a plan here and I don't want to get, like, you know what I mean? Whereas a 2 is a lot more higher pace. But again, for whatever reason, they're not making it 3s, and some women don't want to do the 3s. I don't know exactly why. Women are, in my opinion, like you do see to a degree, like the men do have, I think, more skills to a certain degree.
Yeah. I'd only say that because they've been doing it for a longer generation of time, since like more the ancient times.
Yes. So that's what I meant. I think that could be taken the wrong way. So women have the skills and we're developing, but because the men have done it for so much longer and had more experience. So also don't forget, like if you're a female, you're not as active as a male because there aren't as many girls. So that
especially like with women as well, you go through periods and all that other stuff where a lot of men don't understand where you have to deload in order to be able to still make progress, but be mindful of like that week when you have that period.
Well, this is what I struggled with at nationals as well. So like, I mean, my opponent was great, no discredit to her. And I don't want to be that person who fights and has excuses like I had this, I had that. So I don't want to be that person. My opponent was the better fighter, like for that match, she was. Yeah. But that week was for me like, you know, like I said, Murphy's Law, anything that could go wrong did go wrong. And, you know, it was, so we got to Canberra the Tuesday, I fought Wednesday, and that Tuesday afternoon, I knew it was coming, like I expected it, but I didn't expect it till Friday. So a part of me went, oh, maybe it's going to come later. It came the afternoon before, like I fought the day before.
Oh, wow.
And I went, oh my God. And it actually, I kid you not, I woke up that morning on weight, like the day before. The day before I was on weight. Period came. The next day, I'm now 1.5 kilos over. Done nothing wrong. I've followed my diet. Like, it was so, and it's frustrating. Like your body, your weight, it all fluctuates. And then the day of the fight, it's like I'm trying so hard to be like, this is just mental. Try not to think about it, but it's not mental. It's biological. It's legit. Like it's physical. So your body, whether you like it or not, is going to be affected by it. And for me, like every woman's different, I feel lethargic. Like it doesn't matter pre-workout, whatever I take, like I feel off. So I knew I tried so hard to, I tried really hard to not let it get to me, but it physically, it just was, it was there. Like it got to me.
Can
and
imagine
I just couldn't not be off. Like I got in the ring after the first round. It was a very, very competitive fight. Like it was a very competitive fight, very high pace, competitive, but at the end of the first, I just knew. I sat down on the stool and I was like, yep, like this is not my, I know this is not my best. And I know, you just know, you know?
You do.
Yeah.
It's a feeling that you can't explain. Like, I know exactly what you mean, especially when you know, as soon as sometimes you hit gloves for wrestling, we shake hands.
You just know.
You know what's going to happen. You know the outcome most of the time. But there's some matches where you know where you're going to go into a war and you don't know what the possible outcome is.
Yeah.
You just go in there with your best plan forward and
it's not always in your control.
Yeah,
exactly. And that's like the brutal thing I find with this sport is like there's only so much you can control. You can't control your opponent.
That's true.
You can't control if you're going to get a period. You can't control, you can control the weight cut, but you don't know exactly how it's going to affect you in that fight, you know? True. So there are so many like external factors that we can't control. And it's the cool thing, like, you know, I think you'd understand as a wrestler, you're on, you're off. And sometimes you can do all the right things. Like I did all the right things in my nationals prep. Things happened, but I worked through them. I adapted, but I was off. And it just happened that way. Like I couldn't have done anything different. It just wasn't my best. And it just felt out of my control. Yeah.
Yeah, and I find that like that's always good fuel you can use for your training in order to
Definitely.
become a better athlete.
Definitely. Yeah. So like despite this happening, I had like a little awakening at nationals as I was watching the, you know, the eventual winner in my categories, and as I was watching some of the other like the best amateur fighters in the country. I got to watch those fights. It felt amazing to watch, and I was sort of inspired, you know, just when I was actually considering going pro. So I did actually want to go pro this year. I'm at a new gym with Mark Gretsch at Jab Out. It's been going great. He knows I want to go pro. I sort of had like a little, you know what? Like, I'm going to come back better. I actually think I could get a medal. Like, I really, really do believe that. I really think I could. So I thought, look, more experience, try this again. Like, I really want to see if I can get that medal, and then we'll consider pro. But I just feel like I've been inspired as well, and my amateur boxing like is just not at like a peak yet. Like, it's a huge achievement just to compete at nationals, but there's something in me that says like this isn't the end of my amateur story. Like, I don't just go to nationals and lose. Like, I feel like I've got more to achieve.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I believe you will as well. And one last question. How do you want your kids to remember you by when you move on?
As in when I pass?
Like pass away.
Move on.
In nicer words.
Honestly, I just want them to see that, like, you know, if you want something, you can have it. I'm a big believer in hard work and that beating talent, which is a sort of corny saying, hard work beats talent. But I really think that's true, because you can see it in combat sports, whether it's MMA, boxing. If you want something and you work hard for it, like you can get it. And just like sticking to your guns. Like, I really hope my daughter has that. So I tend to trigger people. I can be confronting because I'm very forward, but I actually think, even though that's something that to some is a negative trait, I think it's a great trait, like to be forward, to be able to talk and be open-minded. And I want my daughter to be that way. Like, I don't care if she makes people uncomfortable, speak, say how you feel, be loud. And just for the both of them to know, work for what you want and just never, ever give up. Like, the amount of times that I've had to face something that I feel should have made me quit and go, no, I'm not fighting, or I don't want to be here, even with mental health. Like, I've had depression, like I just want to die sort of things, but just don't give up, because at the other side of, pushing through, like, there is actually a light, and these things do make you stronger. And I just really do believe in the power in overcoming those challenges.
Word. And just thank you again for coming down, and it's been a great episode.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
it was
no
great.
worries.
It was great talking.
Until next time.
Yeah. See ya.